Hosea acts out through his marriage the condition of Israel, the 10 northern tribes, right? And he marries a prostitute, and then she goes out on him, and then when everyone's done with her, God says, take her back. And it's emblematic of Israel. They're in a covenant marriage with their God, the Father. And the covenant, of course, should be the Old Testament covenant, the Ten Commandment covenant. Of course, they were unfaithful, and they worshiped their other gods. And God is saying, if you just come back, I will take you back, just like I had Hosea take Gomer back. But they refused to. And so when we read through chapter 7, 8, and 9, and actually later, all through there, it's really a pouring out of God's heart and how hurt he is. But he's also, we see this judgment language too, because I pleaded with you, and I pleaded with you, and I pleaded with you. And so you're going to reap what you sow, all right? And that's just a natural cause and effect. You reap what you sow. And in it, we see a lot of what's going on politically today and every generation, because without God, people just turn into a mess, don't they? They become a depraved people. And so that's what we're going to see here. So I'm going to open up with this remark by Jesus' brother James. He says, you adulteresses. He's talking to Christian people, right? And he says, do you not realize that friendship with the world is hostility towards God? It makes you an enemy with God. And it's interesting because as Christians, we have married ourselves to God because he's redeemed us. That's just the redeeming love, right? Through Jesus Christ. And he bought us out of the world. And he's married, engaged us to Jesus. And so if we're holding hands with the world and he said that commits spiritual adultery. We can be guilty of it as well, right? And so therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes yourself what? And so there's sometimes what we call false dichotomy. It's this way or A or B, but sometimes it's C or D. But this is A or B. Either you love God or you love the world. And if you love the world, you're an enemy of God. There's no in between. Now, when we talk about the world, what are we talking about? The beautiful creation and the flowers and the turkeys out there and the sunshine? It's the way of the world, the culture of the world, and what they esteem as wonderful and beautiful. And so we'll look at another text in 1 John today as we finish all the things that are in the world. So that was Israel's problem. They just went the way of the world. And there's so many reasons for it, because you want to be popular, you want to accept what the world accepts, you don't want to be left out because you become indifferent, hardens the heart. There's so many things. Yes, Julie.
Okay, so when people say, because I was just talking to a gal about God and a relationship with God, about religion, it's more than just, going to church or
right.
doing this, it's like not a checklist, but it's a relationship.
Exactly.
And a lot of people say, and she did too, that, well, when I'm out in nature or, on a hike or whatever, then I feel I'm spiritual.
Right.
So is that what they're kind of talking about, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a big common phrase. People want to be spiritual, but they don't want to follow Christ. Exactly. But they still want to be spiritual. And
is that what they're saying?
I think it's different here because they want to hold hands with both. They want to be God's people, but, we're going to see that they're deceived. They don't even know they've left God. And so a person like you're talking about, usually I would just say, I understand that. I've heard that a lot. But if I could show you that God asked you to actually be part of his local church, would that change your mind? You're not telling them anything. You're asking for permission to show them, and would it change your mind? And we go, no, it wouldn't. You're right, it probably wouldn't. So we'll just go on the road, down the road. But if they say, yes, you'd have to show me, then you can show them, right? And see, God is trying to show Israel. You can't have it both ways, but they don't want to change because they think they're okay. And so it's a great question to help, because the parallels are exactly the same. So when we look at this, look in chapter 7. We're just going to read through a lot of this without talking about every verse but I want to read it all because the Holy Spirit left it for us, so it deserves being read, okay? And even though some of it we'll just read and not even comment. But verse 1 of chapter 7, I would heal Israel. Does God want to bring Israel back and heal her? Yes. That's always his heart. That's that hesed of God, right? Loving kindness. The iniquity of Ephraim, that's the largest tribe in the 10 northern tribes, is uncovered. The evil deeds of Samaria, for they deal falsely. The thief enters in, bandits raid out, and they don't consider in their hearts that I remember all their wickedness. Now their deeds are all around them. They are before my face. Now that's very interesting. We just want to point out, does anything escape God's notice when it comes to our life? But often people think, well, God doesn't know. He doesn't care. Or everyone else is doing it. It really doesn't matter. But when we hear the voice of God, he's looking at his bride, Israel. I know all of you do what you're doing. And when it kills him, it hurts him, doesn't it? Because after all he's done to extend himself to this bride. But also, it's sad because he knows there's going to be punishment for it. But he knows everything they've done, all their wickedness, all their deeds, they're all before his face. All right, and it's very interesting because sometimes we don't realize that God knows that. Notice what Jeremiah says. Although you wash yourself with lye and use much soap, you're trying to get the blood off your hands or dirt off your hands. You're trying to clean yourself. The stain of your iniquity, that's your sin, is before me, declares the Lord. He said, I still know it. You can't get it off. I know. I see it. Yes.
Israel was the first to do God's will. So
yes.
what they wanted to do.
Yes.
And
they just blew it off. That's right. They did. Jeremiah says, for my eyes are on all their ways. They are not hidden from my face, nor is their iniquity concealed from my eyes. And I don't know. Have we all done this? Told, well, no one knows. I'll never get caught. It doesn't matter. And we've always said that. We might even say it. And God's saying, wake up. I see it all. You can't hide it from me. Ezekiel says, he said to me, son of man, do you see what the elders of the house of Israel committing in the dark? Each man in the room is carved image. These were the priests where they're worshiping idols, literally. Thus said the Lord, this is what they say. Well, the Lord does not see us. That's what the priests are actually telling themselves. The Lord's not aware of what we're doing because the Lord's left the land. That's the biggest lie Satan would have us believe in our personal lives, that God doesn't see. He's not aware. He's too busy or whatever. He says, no, I see it all. All right? So now we look at verse 3 as we go on. With their wickedness, they make the king glad, and the princes with their lies. They're all adulterers, like an oven heated by the baker, who ceases to stir up the fire from the kneading of the dough until it is leavened. These are all these word pictures, but politically, Israel's a mess. Because all the king's men are lying to him and setting him up and trying to get him in cahoots with what they're doing, and they're plotting evil and all that. And it's interesting, it's just like an oven heated by the baker. Now, before he stirs the fire up to put the bread in, what does he have to do? What does it say there in the text? He kneads the dough until it's what? Leavened, and it's ready. Then you stir up the fire and get it hot and you stick it in. That's Israel. A little leaven is leavening the whole lump, but the fire will get stirred up and God will put you in it. That's what he's saying here, all right? On the day, verse 5, the king, the princes become sick with the heat of wine. He stretched out his hand with scoffers. Their hearts are like an oven as they approach their plotting. Their anger smolders at night. They just think about all the things they can do. They're evil or whatever. In the morning, it burns like the flaming fire. All of them are hot like an oven. They consume their rulers. Their kings have fallen. None of them calls on me. Isn't that sad? They plot, and we're going to see they use alliances with other nations to try to get their security. Rather than trust in God to deliver, they're always plotting with others, and none of them call on me. And it's sad in my life, in the past, the last thing often I do after trying to fix everything myself, I said, well, I guess I better try praying, you know? And that should be the first thing, right? Here they don't call on God at all right? Verse 8, Ephraim mixed himself with the nations. Ephraim has become a cake not turned. And we'll just talk about that when I get there. It's interesting. The last 6 kings of Israel were murdered. We're going to look at that in just a second, okay? That's why he's talking about their kings have fallen. They consumed the rulers. There was, some of them only lasted a month, these kings of Israel. And someone made the point, I think last Sunday, none of the kings of Israel were righteous. They were all evil during this time, every one. And we're going to look at that in just a second. So we think sometimes when we have evil politicians, like, oh boy, no, there's nothing new under the sun, okay? And so that's what's happened here. What's a cake not turned? That's kind of a figure of speech that's lost on us. So you put some bread in the oven or on a pan or a hot griddle, and when you forget to turn it, what's going to happen? Burns on one side, and the other top side is what? Doughy. And it's ruined. It's worthless. And that's what he says. He says, Israel, they're like a cake not turned. They're burned on one side, and they're not done on the other, and they're useless. And so they're going to be discarded. Strangers devour his strength, talking about Israel, the 10 northern tribes, yet he does not know it. Gray hairs are sprinkled on him, yet he does not know it. Though the pride of Israel, that's probably God the Father, testifies against him, yet they have not returned to the Lord their God. They have not sought him for all this. What's really bad, and this is what Julia was saying earlier, people often are doing wrong and they don't even know it. Isn't that what it says twice? They're being devoured by their enemies. They're being set up for a fall, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but they don't even know it. And they're falling in a trap, and they don't even know it. And does that speak of a lot of the conditions, even of Christians, but people in the world? They're in trouble, and they don't even know it. Yes?
They don't know right from wrong.
That's right. They listen to all the lies, too, thinking everything's okay. It's interesting. Samson, remember when he lied to Delilah twice about where his strength was? You got to tie me up with fresh cords, and they did it at night, and he broke them. She says, you mocked me. And finally, if you just cut my hair, I'll lose my strength. So she had it cut during night, and it says what? He did not know that the Lord had departed him when he woke up. He thought he was still strong. He didn't know until they came and took him away. Could we fall in that same trap? Knowing God's left us, we don't even know it. If friendship with the world makes us an enemy of God, and sometimes he'll leave, but we won't even know it. Then we wonder why things are going bad. Yes?
I'm trying to think of the beginning of the chapter when it said that God remembered our iniquities.
Yes.
And he remembered those iniquities when we do not repent or when we do not call on his name for salvation. But in some way, we become spiritually stupid when we believe what Satan said.
Yes.
And when we just follow what he said, in some way we became ignorant.
Yes.
Or in some way, again, stupid.
Yes.
In spiritual sense.
Yes. Spiritually stupid. Yeah. Right. It says right, when he says to remember sins, that means you'll reap what you sow. And the only time God forgets your sins is when you come to Christ, right? He says, I will forgive them, remember them no more. There's no more judgment. And as a Christian, we continue to sin, but God continues to forgive. That's one of the blessings of being in a relationship with God, that we're doing our best trying to please him, but we never do it perfectly. So when he says he remembers, that means judgment is coming, okay? So then we look at the next verse. So verse 11, Ephraim has become like a silly dove without sense. And I love the word pictures, and the dove just flitters around here and there. Notice here what they're doing. They call to Egypt, they go to Syria. Now, what do you think that means? Go ahead, Linda. All right, so they're in trouble with their enemies. Assyria's threatened them from the north, so they go down to Egypt. Hey, we'll pay tribute to you if you line up with us. But at the same time, they're going to Syria. Like, those Egyptians, they're really bad. And, and so they're playing both sides of the coin. Now, remember we've talked about before, Assyria's to the north, Egypt's to the south. And when they're fighting each other, where do they have to pass through every time? Israel. They're always getting the brunt of everything. So they're trying to play both sides, get allies with them both, but it's not going to work. They're like a silly dove. Who should they have made allies with? Because God said, I'll protect you from all your enemies. That's the book of Judges. When they turned away, enemies came in. When they came back, God got rid of the enemies. Yes?
I was going to say they weren't supposed to make alliances with any other nations.
That was another thing. God said, don't. Trust me. Yeah, don't make covenants or alliances with other ones. So when they go, I'm going to spread my net over them. Because remember, they're like a dove. That's how you capture birds, with a net, right? I'll bring them down like the birds of the sky. I'll chastise them in accordance with the proclamation to their assembly. Woe to them, for they have strayed from me. Like you said, they shouldn't even be making treaties with other countries. Destruction is theirs, for they have rebelled against me. I would redeem them. Isn't that how it started? I would heal them. And that's chapter 6. Return, O Israel. But they keep saying what? No. I was talking to some individual just not recently, and the two of them are separated, husband and wife, and just begging, come back. And then the answer is no. And that just leaves you what? Brokenhearted, especially when you don't even know why. And I think we hear God's heart here. He's brokenhearted. After all he's done for Israel, brought her out of Egyptian captivity. She's going back to that same Egypt and trying to make treaties for their safety. Her only safety was God. But it says what? They rebelled, I would redeem them, but they speak lies about me. So we look on, verse 14. And they do not cry to me from their heart. When they wail on their beds, for the sake of the grain, the new wine, they assemble themselves. They turn away from me. So help me make sense of this. Are they crying to God? Well, no, look at it again. Where are they wailing? So are they crying to God?
Well, if they are, they're not coming from their heart.
How do you know that?
Because it says so.
Good.
From my heart.
All right. They are crying to God, but it says not from their heart.
It's insincere.
It's insincere. They're not willing to change. They're just in trouble. They're looking for a quick fix. It's like calling 911, right? But then they go back to their drugs. Like if they're people, they're overdosed, they call it, and they get revived, and they go right back to it. So I want you to see, they're crying to God, but it's not heartfelt. There's no repentance. There's no like, God, I'll really change. So it's possible for people, even us, to cry to God, but not really cry from the heart. It's not sincere. And that's a slap in his face, isn't it? I mean, it's like telling someone you love them when you're cheating on them. And that's what's happening here.
Jack, does crying from your heart mean only when you need something, or is it just crying from your heart from joy or whatever?
No, this would be, in this context, they're being oppressed by these enemies or countries, nation states around them, and they're crying for help. But they're not willing to acknowledge their own sinfulness that brought it on. And so that's why it's not from their heart.
I was wondering whether you cry from heart from joy with being in Christ too.
Well, that'd be a total different thing, right? This is a crying of mourning and lamenting, yes.
Judges, I think, 15 cycles from good to bad.
Yeah. It's this repeated over and over, isn't it? Yeah.
Is there any of Israel that was turned to God
Yeah, there's always a subset within the whole nation that are the faithful. But it's always a minority. We call it the remnant.
away from God?
Yeah. Huh?
Are they turned away from God?
There's always a group that's faithful. And that group gets smaller and fluctuates in size. But even in the Lord's church, not everyone's going. There's the wheat and the tares in the Lord's church, right? And it's only that small group that are faithful. So all this stuff applies to us, all right? And that's why we're reading it. But so verse. Oh, I'm sorry, Mary.
I was just gonna add, shame we say that it's foxhole religion.
Foxhole religion? Yeah.
Real trouble when you pray God and as soon as
Yeah, everyone finds the Lord in the foxhole when bombs are coming down, right? Yeah. Right. That's a good one. So, verse 15, although I trained and strengthened their arms, yet they devise evil against me. They turn, but not upward. They're like a deceitful bow. That's a bow that you shoot, and what does it do? It's like a boomerang, and it comes right back at you. You're the one who gets pierced. They're like a deceitful bow. Their princes will fall by the sword because of the insolence of their tongue. There will be derision in the land of Egypt. It's a sad state of affairs, isn't it, when you look at it all together? And so when we look at this, now we're in chapter 8. And he's going to start with a trumpet sound. Now, what does that always indicate?
Battle.
Yes, there's going to be a battle or a judgment. There's a war coming on. And this is God warring against his people. But will he physically come? No. But we know he's going to bring the Assyrians that is going to take them into captivity in 722. They're all deported. And so it's interesting. We're going to see in here, they're paying tribute to Assyria, the very people that are going to take them captive. All right? And it's like, they don't get it. They're like spiritually stupid, politically stupid too. The people they're paying tribute or taxes to are the ones that are going to take them away. So we're in verse 1, chapter 8. Put the trumpet to your lips, like the eagle of the enemy comes against the house of the Lord. Because they have, there's always reason, transgressed my covenant, that marriage covenant. They rebelled against my law. They cry out to me. This is one that I highlighted. And what does it say? My God, we Israel, we know you. Now, what was God's legal case against them in chapter 6? They have forgotten God. They do not know God. And they're destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And we spent all last week talking about it. Yet in their own mind, we know God. Yeah. But they have no clue of who he is and what his heart's like and what he's done for him, willing to do for him. And yet they're so deceived. Now, I don't want to make this about denominations and people in the Christian world, but does that speak to the majority of people in the Christian world? They think they know the Lord, but they have no clue who he is or what he wants. And they live like the rest of the world. Yes?
I kept thinking, Ephraim and Manasseh, Joseph's sons, they're his descendants.
Yes.
Yet they're all
Yes.
that way.
Yes.
Israel.
Judah is next. And the only reason they're not going to be totally destroyed is so the promise of Abraham can continue. But the saddest part is when in the Lord's church, when we claim that we're part of Christ's family, we can follow the same problem. We don't know the Lord. And we'll talk about that more as we continue that study of knowing the Lord, what it means. Because when you know the Lord, you know his heart, you know his mind, and you're so grateful. It's transformative. You become like him in everything.
That's part of the process of studying, and once you're baptized, is getting to know the Lord, and you never
Yeah.
you keep that on for your whole life.
Well, it's true. That's true. So when we're born into the family of God, we become his children, right? Now, children, when they're born in the world, they know nothing. They can't talk. They can't think. We have to teach them literally everything. And they learn by trial and error and falling down and getting hurt. But do you expect children to grow up and be like their parents? Oh, yeah. Now, that could be a bad thing or a good thing. But if you train up the child in the way they should go, it's a good thing because you want them to be imitators of you as you're imitating God. And so, yeah, it's natural for people to grow up. It's a process is what I'm trying to say, that you're learning always becoming. And so you study God's word, you walk with the Lord, you see his goodness, you mess up and you see where you reap what you sow, and his discipline seems sorrowful at the moment, but he only disciplines those who he loves. You get to know the Lord. And it's transformative. You become more and more like our God. Because we're spiritually his children. And he's training us, isn't he? And if you're not becoming like your God, something's wrong. Something's dysfunctional in your relationship with God. You probably don't know him. Does that make, because knowing means what? You have a relationship. That's what it means, all right? They've already left him. So Israel rejected the good. That's probably God himself and everything about him. But the enemy will pursue him because now they're vulnerable because God's protection's gone. They have set up kings, but not by me. They appointed princes. I didn't know it. With their silver and gold, they've made idols for themselves that they might be cut off. Remember in Bethel and up there in Dan, they had 2 golden calves they were worshiping. And the one in Samaria was why sometimes he talks a lot about Samaria, because that's where this golden calf was in Bethel. Verse 5, he has rejected your calf, O Samaria, because that's where Bethel was, saying, my anger burns against them. So it's like, God forbid, that your husband or your wife brings their lover into your house and says, hey, I'm just going to move him inside. You wouldn't mind, would you? Because God picked a place of worship for Israel. It's Jerusalem. And in his house, they've set up these adulterous temples with 2 golden cows, one in Bethel and one in Samaria. And it hurts God. He said, I've rejected your calf, O Samaria. My anger, verse 5, burns. How long will they be incapable of innocence? For Israel is even this, a craftsman made it so it's not God. Surely the calf of Samaria will be broken to pieces. For they sow the wind, but they're going to what? Reap the whirlwind. How many times have we heard that? Actually, I heard it on news just today. They're going to reap the whirlwind. All right, so exactly. That's what he's talking about here. When they reap the whirlwind, they're sowing to the wind like it doesn't matter. But there's a storm coming and they're bringing it on themselves. It's all going to come back to them, all right? Isn't that sad when he talks about that, this golden calf? But that's where he says they sow the wind, the seeds of all this judgment, and that whirlwind's coming. They don't know it. When it comes, a tornado, without our warning system, when is it upon you? When you find out one's coming, that's what I wanted to ask. Yeah, it's too late. It's right on you. And I've never been in one, but that's what I understand. But now they have warning systems, right? Sirens go off. And that's what he's saying. It's going to be too late. It's going to be over just like that. And that's exactly what happened. We're going to read about it in just a little bit, okay? Israel swallowed up. They're among the nations like a vessel when no one delights. They've gone up to Syria to make their treaties, right? Like a wild donkey alone. Ephraim has hired lovers. Who are the lovers? These other nations rather than their... Isn't that sad? God says you're making alliance with other kings, other people. He calls them lovers because you trust them more than you trust me. You're playing the harlot. Even though they hire allies among the nations, I will gather them up and they'll begin to diminish because of the burden of the king and the princes. He's coming for judgment. Verse 11, Ephraim has multiplied what? Altars for their sin. So they're in their high places, they got these places of worship to all the idols all throughout the country. They become altars of sinning for him. Though I wrote for him 10,000 precepts of my law, they are regarded as a strange thing. As for my sacrificial gifts, they sacrifice the flesh and eat it, but the Lord has taken no delight in them. That's where Jesus said, I desire mercy or hesed rather than, because if you're not doing it correctly with a good, an honest, and a moral heart, I cannot accept I take no delight in your sacrifices. Now, verse 13 in the middle, he will remember their iniquity and punish their sins. When he remembers, what does he do? He punishes, okay? Verse 14, for Israel has what? Isn't that sad? They don't know who he is. Oh, they know his name, but they've forgotten him. His maker, and they've built palaces, and Judah's multiplied fortified cities, and I'll send fire on his cities that it may consume his palatial dwellings. Oh, man. So when we look at, when it says return to Egypt, see this phrase, I'll remember their iniquity and punish them for their sins. They're not literally going to Egypt. What do you think that's a figure of speech for? That's exactly what it is. They came out of slavery in Egypt. So now he says, you're going back to Egypt. He's not saying literally, but you're going back into slavery. And that's what happens when Assyria takes them. We'll see that phrase used many times. It's a figure of speech. Huh? To us? Oh, to Israel? Yeah, it happened to them back in before the time of Christ. Yes, it actually did. Yes. So when I want to look at it, I just want to look at the kings of Israel. That's this sheet. So look at 2 Kings real quickly in chapter 15. I want you to see how corrupt it was, and turn with me if you would there. 2 Kings 15. And so the first 7 verses are about the king of Judah, but we're in verse 8. And you have to read along with me because I'm going to ask the question and the answer is there. But in the 38th year of Azariah, the king of Judah, Zechariah, the son of Jeroboam, became king over Israel for how long? 6 months. And verse 9, what did he do? What does it say? In the sight of the Lord. Wouldn't that be great to be on your epitaph on your tombstone? Yeah, Jack lived 6 months as king, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. That's what you're known for. All right? And it says, then Shallum, verse 10, the son of Jabez, conspired him and struck him before the people and killed him and reigned in his place. So he's murdered so he could take over the throne. See how evil this country was? Now, verse 12, verse 19. Now Shallum of Jabesh became king in the 39th year of Uzziah, the king of Judah, and he reigned how long? 1 month. That's because Haman, he kills him and became king in his place. All right? And then he kills all the people that were around him. So in verse 17, in the 39th year of Azariah, the king of Judah, Menahem, son of Gadai, became Israel. And he reigned how long?
10 years.
That's pretty long compared to 1 month, but it's only 10 years. And what, verse 18? He did evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart all the days from the sins of Jeroboam. Jeroboam's the icon of evil. Wouldn't you like to be known as that? The son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin. Then Pul, king of Assyria, verse 19, came against the land, and Haman gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver so that his right hand might be with him to strengthen the kingdom under his rule. Make sense of that verse. What does he do? He's bribing and paying tribute so he can get the king of Assyria on his side, support his kingship, and so he's more powerful himself. He's like the right-hand man of this Assyrian king. Is that the stupidest thing you do politically? Because that is the king who's going to come down and take you pretty soon. So he extracted money from Israel. In verse 20, they all paid a tax. And then he dies, right? So verse 23, in the 50th year of Azariah, the king of Judah, same king's in Judah all this time, right? Pekahiah, the son of Menahem, became Israel and reigned how long?
2 years.
Verse 24, what's his reputation? Evil. All right. Then Pekah, verse 25, the son of Remaliah, his officer, conspired against him and struck him in the castle of the king's house with Argob and Ariah, and with him 50 men of the Galileites, and he killed them, became king in his place. Verse 27, Pekah, how long did he reign? 20 years. Yeah. In verse 28, his reputation? And he did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam. In the days of Pekah, the king of Israel, Tilgath-Pilzer, king of Assyria, came and captured Eon and Abath, Maacah, and all these men, and carried them captive to Assyria. And Hosea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of all these names, and struck him and put him to death, and he became his king in this place. So he's taken away, these people are taken captivity by the same Assyrian that they're nation that they're making alliances with. Now, chapter 17, look over there. In the 9th year of Hosea, this is the final blow. The king of Assyria captured Samaria and carried Israel away. See that in verse 6? Chapter 17, verse 6. Settled them in Halah and harbor on the river Gozan and the cities of Medes. Verse 7, this came about because the sons of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up from the land of Egypt, from the hand of the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and they had feared other gods. And they walked in the customs of the nations whom the Lord had driven out before them, the sons of Israel, and the customs of the kings of Israel, which they had introduced. And the sons of Israel did these things secretly, which were not right against their Lord their God. Moreover, they built for themselves high places in all their towns, from watchtower to fortified cities. And he talks about their idolatry. They did it what? In secret. And what did we start with? If you're a friend of the world, it makes you an enemy of God. You adulteresses. That's what they did. They loved the world rather than God. Now that's their final fall in 72. Isn't it a mess, this kingship in Israel? So I won't go through all those because we just did. Chapter 9, we're done. So we'll go back. So don't get dismayed if our country has a series of bad kings. I mean, be dismayed. It's sad. Bad presidents or rulers. But it won't be the first time, all right? So chapter 9, Hosea. Do not rejoice, O Israel, with exultation like the nations, for you have played the harlot, forsaking your God. You have loved harlots' earlings on every threshing floor. Threshing floor and winepress will not feed them, and the new wine will fail them. For they will not remain in the Lord's hand, but Ephraim will return to Egypt. What is that a reference to? The captivity, not Egypt per se, but in Assyria, they will eat unclean food. Now, what does that mean? Assyria is going to take them. What do you mean, eat unclean food?
Pork and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're in a foreign country. They can't follow the law of the Lord, right? They will not pour out drink offerings on the wine to the Lord. Their sacrifice will not please them. Their bread will be like mourner's bread. All of Egypt will be defiled. Their bread will be for themselves alone. It will not enter the house of the Lord. Verse 5, what will you do on the day of the appointed festival, on the day of the feast of the Lord? Will you be able to go to Jerusalem? No, you're going to be in Assyria. It's all over. You can't keep any of the feasts, the Passover, the Pentecost, right? All those things. Verse 6, behold, they will go because of destruction. Egypt will gather them up. Memphis will bury them. Weeds will take over their treasure of silver. Thorns will be in their tents. Verse 7, the days of punishment have come. The days of retribution have come. Let Israel know this. The prophet is a fool. The inspired man is demented because the gross is your iniquity, because your hostility is so great. And I don't have time to talk about it, but Isaiah talks about it, and Jeremiah talks about it. All the false prophets were saying all this time, peace, peace, God's with us. He calls them a fool. Do we have that going on today? People saying all sorts of things that are contrary to God, and they're fools, all right? Verse 8, Ephraim was a watchman with my God, a prophet, yet the snare of birds catcher is in all his ways. He's supposed to watch out, but he didn't. There's only hostility in the house of God. Verse 9, we'll pause a little here. They have gone deep into what? As in the days of Gibeah. He will remember their iniquity and punish their sin. So that's the second handout, called the days of Gibeah. Does anyone remember what happened there? This is one of the most horrific things. It's in Judges 19. A Levite from Ephraim's traveling to his house, father's house in Bethlehem. They stop in Gibeah. No one takes him in. That's what you're supposed to do. But this old man lets him stay in his house, and Ephraim might. But during the night, the men surround the house, and they want to have sex with this visitor, this Levite. It's just like Sodom and Gomorrah revisited, isn't it? The old man offers his virgin daughter and the Levite's concubine, because he has one. And so the Levite sends out his concubine because they want to have sex with him. So he sends her out, and they rape her, and she's found dead at the doorstep in the morning. So the Levite takes her body and cuts it into 12 pieces and sends it to all the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is the most horrific thing, and it's hard to make sense of what's going on, but there's judgment is going to come. And so Israel, they're outraged by this. They demand they hand over the guy, and they said, no, we can't do it. So there's a civil war, and see the outcome of nearly all the Benjamite men, 25,000 are killed. But this is the moral decay that was going on in their day. They wanted to rape this man homosexually, so they rape his concubine until she dies. This is not pleasant, but it's in the Bible. And what is he saying about Samaria or Israel? Where am I? What verse? Yeah. They have gone deep into depravity, just like the days of Gibeah we just read about. So what was going on in Israel? Homosexuality. You know, abusing children. Murder. It's disgusting. And people say, oh, how could loving God punish people? I think we have our answer here. Because they've sowed to the wind, they're going to reap the whirlwind. Because God is a loving God, but he's also a righteous God and a just God, isn't he? And he has to be true to his justice and righteousness. And he has to avenge the people that have been hurt. And so when he pleads and pleads and pleads, the wrath of God will come. And it'll come upon this nation here too. And those who don't honor him around the world. Mariano.
Yeah, it can be so crazy and foolish. You know, God told him in I think in verse 3 or 4,
Yeah.
3, you would eat unclean food.
Yes.
So they were so worried about eating clean food.
Oh, following the rituals, right.
Mm-hmm. But they were not worried about all those types
Yeah.
of sin
Yeah.
against God.
That's a real good observation.
Yeah, and I don't know, during the time of Jesus was almost the same.
Yes, it was.
Following ritual, but not following God from the heart
Yeah.
and changing my behavior.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes we can
Yeah.
follow this into the same trap.
Well,
Worry about things that are we don't need to worry about. But when we talk about sin, we just fall into sin.
Yeah.
But we think we
Yes.
are really I don't know.
Yes.
This idea of we have to follow this
Yes.
thing.
And not the little things are important, but there's some bigger things we need to deal with, the weightier matters. I don't know how long I've been preaching. I'm old. 35, going on 40 years. And I can't tell you how many people I've encountered, and they often complain about the little things, and usually the people that complain the most are the things, they're doing things that are worse. And I've seen it, like, where's your heart? And I'm talking about in the Lord's church. And we preach on it, we talk about it, but the things that go on, it's despicable. It can be. But that's the where it tears in the wheat. And so we're not just talking about Israel, we're talking about ourselves. We have to take a careful look in the mirror. What are we doing? And is our heart really right with the Lord? Because it wounds him. It really does. He grieves over it. He cries over it. Let's just finish with this. Verse 17, he cleansed. My God will cast them away because what? And I think that's the problem. You know, we can preach and preach, and some people have been to 52 worship services a year, over 10 years. That's 520 sermons. They've heard, but it's just like bounced off. And I know I was there when I was a young kid, too. I didn't listen. Isn't that the saddest thing? And they're going to be wanderers among the nations. So here's some takeaways real quick. Just some things that I want to highlighted that through these 3 chapters. God's going to remember all their wickedness. You know what he said? None of them calls on me. Isn't that sad? He's just waiting for someone to call. He's waiting by the phone, if you would. And he'll come rescue them. Yet he doesn't know it. In other words, they're in trouble. They don't even know it. I would redeem them, but they speak lies about him, about God. And that's so much the religious landscape today. They don't cry to me from their heart. That has to hurt God, because he knows when it's a fake cry. You're just saying the words, doesn't he? My God, we of Israel know you. That must just, because God knows you've forgotten me. You don't know who I am. And yet they keep on claiming they know him. And Israel has rejected the good. Boy, isn't that sad to reject the good God and all the good gifts he's willing to give us? They sow the wind, they reap the whirlwind. We're going to get what we deserve because they've forgotten his maker. But he will remember their iniquity, chapter 9, verse 9. And when you remember, that means what? He's going to punish, bring it into judgment. Now, it's trying to be a downer lesson, but it should be encouraging because it's about God's redeeming love. Because in all of this, what did they have to do? The single thing. Just come back. And how quickly would God forgive them and restore immediately, because he delights in these things. And we have to remember that. As long as we repent, I don't care what we've done, you cannot do anything bad enough that God won't forgive. You can't. There's nothing. He just wants us to come back with a genuine heart. So let me finish with this. John says this: do not love the world with things in the world. Because if anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. You can't love both, right? This is a dichotomy, right? For all that is in the world, it's the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and boastful pride of life. All those things get you into trouble, right? And it's not from the Father, but it's from the world. The world is passing away, and its lust will all pass away with it. But the one who does the will of God, here's the promise, will what? Continue to live forever. Thank you, Lord. And so that's our lesson. All right, thank you.